How is it going, everyone? It's Caleb here, and today we are going to be talking about Captain America, the First Avenger. This is the first Captain America MCU movie to talk about, and I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm glad that I went back and watched this. It had been quite some time since I've seen this, and you know what? It holds up pretty well. I still really like this movie, and I think it's really enjoyable, and I actually think that this might be my favorite version of Captain America. I think that this might be my favorite movie form of Captain America. I really liked him in this movie. I actually think that he's better in this movie than he is in some of the future movies. And I think that's partially because in this movie he just comes across as very, very wholesome. He's a very wholesome hero. Like, his goal is pretty simple. He just wants to stand up to the bad guys. He just wants to stand up to bullies. And I think that's very relatable, and I think that's just a goal that is pretty, universal. I think a lot of people just want to beat the bullies, and I like the whole idea of that being his motivation to become a superhero. And really, it wasn't even his motivation to become a superhero at first. His whole goal was just to join the military. That's his whole goal from the beginning. But before Captain America becomes, the super soldier, he starts off as just Steve Rogers, and Steve Rogers is just a scrawny guy who has many, many health issues. I can relate to that. He has many health issues, not the scrawny part, but the health issues. But he has a lot of health issues, and he can't join the military because of those health issues, even though he wants to. So the only way he can get in there is with the help of another scientist who takes notice of him, and he realizes that this guy, Steve Rogers, he has a lot of heart. And with this heart, he would make a good soldier if he just had the ability, if he just had the physical capabilities. So, this scientist kind of pushes him into basic training, even though he shouldn't really be in it, and gets him onto the basically puts him in the role to finally get the super soldier serum, because they know that he is the most disciplined person there. He's the person there who would give his life for any of the other soldiers, and he's the perfect soldier if he just had a physical capability to be it. So that's why they give him the super serum, and he becomes Captain America. But even when he becomes Captain America, he actually doesn't get to become a super soldier right off the bat. He actually is paraded around as basically just a mascot for the military for a while. He's just there to basically sell bonds, and that's all he's there for. He's there to make money for the military so they can go buy more ammunition, and that's really all it comes down to. And it's not what he wants. He doesn't want to be just a mascot. He wants to be on the front lines. That's his whole goal. His whole goal was to be serving in the military and standing up to the bullies, around the world. He wants to stand up to the bad guys. And he eventually does have that chance to do that when his best friend Bucky gets kidnapped by Hydra. Once that happens, Captain America takes problems into his own hands, and he really becomes Captain America. He's like, all right, I'm not doing my next, little staged event here. I'm not doing my next little choreographed event that they have scheduled. I'm going to war. I'm going to war. I'm going behind enemy lines without letting anyone know about it, other than, just a couple handful of people that he needs to get him over there. So he does that. He gets Bucky back for a little while. But he gets Bucky back, and then he becomes Captain America for real this time. And on the way, he meets the leader of Hydra, Red Skull. Red Skull is a really interesting villain because he's a scientist. He's a really smart scientist, and he is very terrifying looking. I think he actually looks fantastic in this movie. I think they did a really good job with, the makeup and everything, all the makeup design on him. I think he looks really, really good. So they did a good job with that. And his goal is a bit odd because he wants to become godlike, and Hydra, they even talk about it in this, Hydra is more like a cult in this movie. Hydra is really focused on the occult aspects of what the Nazis were doing. The Nazis in real life were actually obsessed with the cult. I think a lot of people know that at this point. I think it's pretty common knowledge that, they had their own little rooms with like Ouija boards and everything else that they would actually use, and they would actually try to use this for military strategy. And it's a very interesting thing. Like I said, I think that's pretty common knowledge at this point that they would try that stuff. And this is what Hydra is all about. This Hydra group is about the occult part of the Nazis, and this is the leader of them, Red Skull. And Red Skull does get to the point where he basically wants to split away from the Nazis, because he has his own goals in mind as well, because he just wants complete world domination. He basically says at one point that he wants a new world order. He wants a world with no flags, which would insinuate a new world order. He wants everyone under his control, complete world domination, no other governments other than just his, other than Hydra. And he makes that pretty clear that's what he wants. So it comes down to Captain America having to try to stop Red Skull from basically destroying every nation and basically becoming the world dictator. So that's how this all goes. That's how the story goes. So Captain America finally gets to stand up to the bad guy and kick his butt. There's a lot of cool fighting in this movie. I really like the fighting in this. One thing I like about this movie is when Captain America is fighting and he's using like his shield and everything, he's still using a gun too, which just, I always thought that made more sense for Captain America. That's one of the reasons I like U.S. Agent so much, because he still he uses a shield, but he also uses a gun. Because if you're going to be a super soldier, it makes sense that you would use everything to your advantage. So if you are better with a gun, then you're going to use a gun. It just makes sense. So I never really, after this movie, I feel like they kind of started to veer away from that. But to me, it's just like, it's an advantage. You're going to want an advantage in a fight. Take the gun. Who cares? Like, you're a good guy. It's not like you're using it for bad things. So, but yeah, I do feel like they kind of watered Captain America down in the future Marvel movies. But in this one, I think that this was the best version of Cap. This was his best fighting. This was the most I say realistic, but like obviously in superhero in a superhero world still. But this is what I would feel like the most, if superheroes were a thing and super soldiers were a thing, this would be the most realistic depiction of one, in my opinion. So I always enjoyed that quite a bit. And the fight scenes are really good. I really enjoyed all of those. I enjoy the music in this. Great music. I love the acting and the different characters that you see in this. Tommy Lee Jones is in this. He does a great job. Chris Evans does a great job as Steve Rogers. I don't think anyone else honestly could be Captain America. He just does a perfect job as him, and I don't think anyone could take his place. Honestly, he does just such a great job in this movie. You get to see Carter in this one, Agent Carter. And later on in a What If series, she becomes Captain Carter in a different thing, and she actually is. Captain Carter's one of my favorite iterations of that character, and I really like Carter in general. I like Agent Carter, but Captain Carter's my favorite. I actually like Captain Carter more than Captain America, personally, but overall, though, I still really like this movie. It looks pretty good. There's some areas that don't look as good. Like a lot of the montages, I think the montages could have looked better. They definitely did not age very well. But other than that, I still think that this movie looks pretty darn good. I really enjoy it. One thing I did want to mention about Red Skull real quick is also that Red Skull has, when he's wearing his like fake face, because he wears a face over his, his red skull to kind of like hide his appearance. But when he's wearing this, you can see these little like scars on his like human looking face. And I thought that was really cool. Just really good writing and, thinking ahead. That way, you see those scars there, which means that it's basically sewn on. So you can tell that he can just rip off that face, and they left those scars there to basically help tell the story. And I just thought it was kind of a neat little small detail that they did, but I thought it was kind of impressive. I actually really liked that. That's thinking ahead, and it was just a small thing that I noticed, and I just kind of wanted to give it a shout out. I like seeing the small things like that because that's just a good part of storytelling, and I think they did a great job with the storytelling in this one. But yeah, this is Captain America. That's all that happens other than, some of the other big spoilers that I don't want to mention. The only other thing I'll say is that at the end, Captain America does have to make an emergency landing, and he crashes in the snow. He gets frozen, and he ends up in modern time. And that's how you get him popping up in the Avengers and being in modern time. And that's all I can really say other than that. But I think I've kept it pretty much spoiler free, but it is a really fun movie. I really enjoy it. It shows just how good Captain America is. It shows just a very wholesome look at a hero, and I really like that. I think that this is a really fun movie. I like Bucky in it, and I like the story of Bucky, and I like how it progresses. And something happens to Bucky in this movie. I won't say what happens because I don't want to spoil it completely, but they did a good job of bringing everything together in the end. So go check out Captain America, the First Avenger. It is still a really fun movie to watch, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.